On this episode of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, we've got some findings to share from this summer, the summer of 2025, specifically some things around camper confidence and how we've seen changes in that camper confidence over time.
Ever feel like you're carrying camp on your shoulders? Staff, parents, the budget, all while trying to keep the ministry central? This is Travis Allison from Go Camp Pro. Please visit camp.mba/sacred to take the free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic.
Jared here from Sacred Playgrounds, just letting you know quick that we have a brand new resource in our Sacred Playgrounds camp store right now, focused on the 5 fundamentals of effective camps. This is a self-assessment tool that just launched. Stay tuned. Halfway through the episode, we'll let you know what your discount code is just for listening to the podcast. Welcome to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. We're behind the mic and behind the research, turning insights into impact and numbers into North Stars for camping ministries and the intrepid leaders that serve them. Each episode blends thoughtful theology, compelling data, and actionable wisdom, all to help camps thrive today, tomorrow, and for years to come. I'm your host and producer, Jared Rendell, Director of Innovation and Communication for Sacred Playgrounds. Joining me is Director and Lead Researcher, Jake Sorensen, a PhD-level scholar, experienced ministry practitioner, and the founder of Sacred Playground. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, the support button to help make these episodes happen, and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Sacred Playgrounds, and always at sacredplaygrounds.com. Explore with us what God might have in store at your Sacred Playground. Welcome to the playground, friends, campers, staff members, parents, pastors, whoever you may be. Jared here. Jake's here with me, as usual. Hi, Jake.
Hey, how we doing, Jared?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
All right.
Welcome to the playground, everybody.
Welcome. We are officially into the fall season.
It's fall. We're multi-episodes in.
Yeah, we are.
The leaves are changing, yes. We were gonna try to go, like, I'm in Minnesota, so there's an up north in Minnesota. There's in Wisconsin too, where you are. Like, there's an up north. That's a thing.
Yes,
and
for sure.
So we were gonna try to go up north in a few weeks, and are in large part to look at leaves. And it's gonna be past already. It looks like it's gonna be too far before we were gonna go, because we've some football weekends and things like that.
Yeah.
When we were gonna go, it's gonna be too far past. So now we gotta
So sad.
We gotta pivot our leaf plan.
Come down by us. I mean, the leaves are starting to change in a week or two. We're gonna be full color.
Yeah.
So I
like it.
I know some retired folks that's just what they do. They like ride a motorcycle or ride their bikes or travel and just kind of follow the changing leaves during the fall.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So we are in the fall, which also is known as post summer for those of us in the camp world. It has its own season sometimes. And so every fall, early in the season for the last few years, once we get some things in, once we get some data in and start to get to take a look at it, as we are, working through and cleaning and reporting and analyzing and all of this, we try to step back on one of these episodes and take a look at what do we learn overall this summer, which is a lot every year. We feel like we learned, and you learned, right? If you did a project with us or whatever it might be, or your denomination did, because we had a couple of those kind of denominational or association projects, and those are great. And so you've got some good learnings. We've got some good learnings overall. What we're going to do today is we're going to take kind of a set of them, and we do this, right? We have shared a lot of times that what we do with data is one of the main things is we ask it questions, right? And we take a look and try to figure out what is it telling us. And some of those questions, especially now that we are, we're years, like basically a decade into this, camper research overall. And of course, we've made shifts to questions and things like that. We'll hear some of that today, but we've got a lot of data. And so we get to now take a look at changes over time. What's the difference over time? Not just a single point in time, not just how this summer went. We get to look over time. And we're going to do a little bit of that today because of some of the things that we noticed from this last summer's data. So this is our chance to share. And what we're going to focus on is around some of these variables, these indices, these data points around campers and their levels of self-confidence. And we ask about that in a handful of ways. And in a minute, Jake will start to kind of lay that out. I'll explain these variables and we'll share about what we've seen over time, the changes that we've seen over time between, the last handful of years. So we're going to lay out from 2018 through now what we've seen over time. We've got 3 things that we've seen, well, 4 total, 3 that we've seen a pattern for of changing, of kind of having a dip. And some of this will be around COVID and those summer 2.5 that still seem to be really affecting things, what we've seen on those patterns, and then one that has acted a little differently so far. So that is our plan. And again, these are all around camper confidence, and some of them are kind of social skill related things. And so that's what we're going to unpack today. That's our plan, Jake.
Sounds good. Let's roll.
All right. Hey, before we do that, can we do our quick camp question?
Of course.
Quick camp question.
All right, a quick camp question for the day is this. Jake, so you remember this pulse check survey that we did?
Of course.
In
Yeah.
August and September. And so one of the things, and it is now my favorite way to gather some of these questions for sure, we asked camp leaders and they filled out how their summer went, and we unpacked that a couple of episodes ago. So if you want to see those results from that pulse check survey that we did with leaders, you can check in on that. Here's one of the questions that came in that pulse check survey. And it's kind of connected to what we're talking about, sort of a few years later, a few steps up maybe. So here's the question. The question is, how can we raise up new leaders who have resilience and can lead our camps, lead our sites year round? And so this idea of how do we raise up these leaders, these presumably for the most part staff members, with a kind of resilience and skills where they're ready to step into roles, year round roles, and they can work with staff, and they can work with donors, and they can work with boards of directors.
Yeah.
So how do we raise up leaders with resilience that can lead these sites year round and work with all those constituents?
Great question. So this is there's a couple ways to answer this. So like this is a very specific one asking about bringing people into year-round staff and leadership, and specifically talking about resilience. I like using that. I like that they use that word because we can see that there's a lot of turnover, especially among our young full-time year-round staff. When they kind of first get into it, there's a lot of turnover. We know that. And it's not always about resilience. Sometimes it's about the jobs that we ask of them. And I've seen some of these job descriptions and they're crazy. We're asking for people to walk on water when they're 22 years old and get paid, just over poverty wages to do that, right? So some of it is on us in terms of what are we asking of these people. But assuming that we are asking reasonable things of them and paying people a reasonable salary, let's assume that. And so how can we then raise up resilient leaders for our full-time year-round ministries? So a couple things. First, this is something that camp does really, really well. We know that camp encourages leaders and builds leaders. And this is something that we've seen in our camper survey data. We're going to talk about that. Actually, that's one of the top 3 things that we saw in terms of growth this summer is I am confident in my ability to be a leader. Okay, so we see that with our campers. We see that's the number 1 area of growth with our summer camp staff. In every summer camp staff study that we've done, we do these year after year, leadership is the number 1 area of growth, both in terms of confidence and ability to be a leader, but also some of those skills that they develop. And then we also know that a lot of folks who come through our programs, then are looking for areas to lead after they're gone from camp, whether that's in church or in the work field or in education or whatever. So we know a lot of these things about the camp experience in general. Now, specifically, how do we raise up people of resilient leadership? I would first say, let them lead. Okay, that's number 1. And so say that with me, everybody. Let them lead. This is campers. This is staff. Too often we're kind of coddling these folks and we're stepping up front when they should be the ones up front. We should be empowering them and giving them agency. So important that we give them agency. And this is at the camper level. This is at the summer staff level. This is at the summer staff leadership level.
Especially.
And this is among our program staff and our kind of younger year-round staff as well. Really empowering them and letting them run with something and letting them fail. That's an okay thing. We can learn from our mistakes and we can support them along the way. So really letting them lead is a key piece of this. I would turn people back to our conversation with Lyle Greiner and his book. They're either leading or
we'll
leaving.
link that.
They're either leading or leaving. Okay. This goes for our campers, our staff, and our full-time staff. So when we're not empowering them, when we're not encouraging them, when we're not giving them agency and letting them run with something, letting them lead something, letting them succeed, giving them space to succeed, then they are going to leave. And we also, if we're coddling them along the way and not challenging them appropriately, we are not giving them that resiliency or grit that they need. And we're robbing them of that, because camp is one of those key places that they can develop resiliency and grit. So give them that agency, encourage them, be there to support them, but let them do it.
Let them do it.
Let them do it. You don't have to do everything as a camp director or leader, and you shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Your goal is to be in the background and to let the next person shine. The program director, the summer staff directors, the regular summer staff members, first-year summer staff members, the campers themselves, like it goes all the way down the line. They should each be encouraging the other, and you start by modeling that.
One of the key moments for me that turned outdoor ministry from a really cool thing that I did in the summer to a potential career was when our director set a group, I think I maybe mentioned this before, set a group of 5 of us on writing our ACA guidelines. Summer staff.
Wow.
We wrote, and yes, of course, like the couple of year-round staff, they went back through and they checked everything, but we wrote our ACA guidelines, 5 summer staff members who were in leadership positions, and it was the first time this camp had gotten accredited. It was like they wanted to do it for a while, so we had to do all of this work. And so our program leadership team, basically, and then they pulled in a couple others, we wrote our ACA guidelines. We were the ones who were deep into what we were doing, and the director said, go for it. So giving that agency really specifically, while we are in the context of the other 2 things we need, right? Community and support. Give us the agency, do it in the context of community and support, not, we have to throw them into this, and now they're a first-time director, and they've never looked at ACA, and they've never been to a board meeting, and they've never do all of that. Give them all that agency in the context of these other things that they need to thrive. Bring them to a summer board meeting. Make sure you have a summer board meeting and bring 3 of your summer staff members who could be potential year-round people. Bring them with.
Yep.
Right? Let them a work study sit in there, and maybe even have them give part of a report or something like that, right? So give them these bites in the context of the community and support that that they need to thrive.
I think that's a great example. Agency, right? And something that's meaningful, right? And so for you, this key example,
Right.
This was really meaningful.
It was a real thing.
There were consequences if you guys didn't do a good job, right? And that was communicated to you, and you followed through on it. I had similar experiences on summer staff and getting those pieces of leadership, being able to write like some curriculum that was used in our traveling day camps. Like that was a big deal for me, and seeing other people use that thing, the things that I was able to produce and do, like that was very empowering for me, and helped lead me into a full-time year-round camp ministry. So
Definitely.
that was a long-winded answer, but
That's
it was
all right.
it's a great question. It's a great question.
Yeah,
It's
really
something
good
that we should
question.
all be thinking of.
Mhm.
So thanks for that question.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Like we said, we've got things to share. This is coming from this summer's data. I'm going to let Jake dive in. We have a few of these key variables that we talked about that we've seen patterns on in the show notes. We're gonna put you get some in show note graphics this week in addition to our stat of the week that we'll do later, because so you can see these patterns. You can see what we looked at and what we shared with some of these different group and association leaders based on what we found this summer. So here we go. Let's dive in.
All right. So as Jared has been saying, this is what we're trying to do here is look at trends over time. And so one of the interesting things that we do, so we've been doing this now, this is a 10th summer doing the Effective Camp Project, right? And so being able to look at some of these data and saying, has anything changed over this time, or what's new under the sun? People always ask us this. So what are the new things that you're finding? So we dig into the data in new ways. And so one of the things that was really coming out of the data this year was some of those growth areas were really common across our different camper groups. So we work with lots of different Christian camps. We work with evangelical Christian camps. We work with mainline Christian camps. We've got some denominational cohorts that we work with. And so looking across these different groups of Christian camps and being able to identify similar things that the campers are growing in and the things that rose to the top in terms of what they are growing in the most. And that led me to say, that's really interesting. How have these things looked over time? And so the thing that stood out, as Jared has already talked about, is self-confidence. And so we know that self-confidence is one of those things that camp really does well, that we really target in terms of an area of growth for the campers. And that this is something that we see growth from the first day to the last day, and that continues on into the months following camp. We know this from the Effective Camp Research Project that we've directed. We also know this from the ACA studies, leading all the way back to the Directions study that they did way back, but also the Youth Impact study and the other things that ACA has done. Camp does really well in developing self-confidence, and campers leaving camp with more self-confidence, that tends to last weeks and months after camp. So we can really see the long-term impacts of camp in these areas. And so one of the things that we really have seen in society, and we see this in a lot of the published literature in terms of youth mental health, in terms of the rise in anxiety. You know, we've got that book that came out last year, Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation, talking about this rise in anxiety among young people and this decline in self-confidence, in social skills. And we can see that mirrored in our camper data. And that's what's really interesting. So as we look at some of these questions that we've asked every year, and we look at those over time, specifically the years right before COVID-19 pandemic and the years right after. And so, as Jared said, looking back to 2018. So we want to look back at 2018 and 2019, so right before COVID, and then the years immediately following up to today. And so there were 3 areas that were clearly, they showed a change from pre-COVID to the years immediately after COVID. And we looked at kind of 2021, 22, 23. And those 3 areas, the first one was, I feel like I have to hide my true self at home or school. So we ask this question on the first day of camp when the campers just arrive, so they haven't had the camp experience yet. It's all these things are fresh in their mind. We're asking them about their home experience. We're asking them about their personal feelings, their agreement level with different statements. This one is a frequency scale. And so we ask them, how often do you feel like you have to hide your true self at home or at school? And so kind of those years before COVID-19 in 2018, 2019, this was pretty steady among the campers that were saying sometimes, often, or always. Almost always I feel like I have to hide my true self. So that was right around 27%, 26%, right around a quarter of the campers were saying at least sometimes they had to hide their true self at home or at school, right? So we know that this is a challenge at our camps. And so some camps, especially the camps that serve populations of campers that are more at risk or come from unstable homes, this is much higher. The ones that say I have to hide my true self at home or school, right? So it fluctuates depending on the population of camper that we're working with. But this is sort of the average. As we take everybody together and look at many thousands of campers that we studied in 2018 and 2019, it was right around a quarter of campers that said sometimes, often, or always with this. Right after COVID, so when we did this in 2022, that number spiked. And it was up to a third. So it went from a quarter to a third. Now, as you say, oh, well, is that really that much? Yes, it is. It really is a lot of campers. It's statistically significant, but you're also looking at 1 out of 4 to 1 out of 3 campers saying sometimes, often, or always to this statement. So you can really see a jump in the frequency of this. And then what we see in 2023, then 2024, is we see a gradual recovery to pre-COVID levels. And so in 2024 and 2025, we were back to the numbers that we saw in 2018 and 2019. And so we can actually see a shift. And we can attribute that to these challenges, this anxiety, these loss of social skills and things caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we can confirm that by looking at some other things. So there's two other things that we see something similar for. One is agreement with I am good at solving problems with a team of people, and another one is I like going out of my comfort zone and trying new things. And so you can see these have to do with teamwork, but also with self-confidence, right? I'm good at solving problems with a team of people, right? So that's a self-confidence sort of question, as well as a teamwork sort of question. And then
And these were agreement scale thing, like level of agreement questions.
Correct. And so with something like I'm good at solving problems with a team of people, that average was right around 70% agreeing with that statement in 2018, 2019. That dropped below 65% in 2022, just post-COVID. And then it kind of gradually in 2023 raised up to 67, 68%, and then made it back to 70% in 2024. And so we see a similar pattern with that one as we do with I have to hide my true self at home or school. And a similar pattern with I like going out of my comfort zone and trying new things. Same idea. This one it was a little more of a dip in agreement. And so in 2018, 2019, we're seeing that around 64, 65 agreeing with that statement, and then that dropping all the way down to like 57% in 2022, right? So we see a big drop, and then we see a recovery back over that 60 percentile again, agreeing with that statement. And again, this is on the first day of camp, right? We're not comparing first day, last day. What we're looking at is where the campers are coming to our camps. How much confidence do they have when they arrive at camp? That has changed over time, and it really took that dip post-COVID. And we can see a lot of those things recovering to pre-COVID levels. So similar numbers of campers are agreeing with those statements or saying sometimes, often, or always as before COVID. Okay, so we can kind of see a change and a recovery. And I think a lot of us, we've talked with multiple camp directors about this. We visited camps, and we can see this in real time. We can see a little bit of recovery. Kids are a little more comfortable around each other again, right? They're a little more willing to try these new things now that they haven't been isolated. They've been in social isolation during middle school or even elementary school. Now they've had those chances to be with people and to be socially connected the last several years. And we can see that has impacted them as they come to our camps. So that's a really interesting thing that we're seeing. Now, you alluded to, there's one of these that's not like the others, right? So we always look for that. One of these things is not like the other one, right? This is a kind of a Sesame Street rhyme that we can say.
Yeah, I'm singing it. I'm singing it to myself.
That one is about making friends. And so the agreement that we asked this question, and so we asked this pre-camp and post-camp, but these are just the pre-camp numbers. I know that I can make friends. So in 2018 and 2019, it was 87 and 88% of campers agreeing with that statement. I know that I can make friends. Okay? So a lot of them have some confidence in their social skills. So it's both self-confidence, but it's also social skills, right? In 2022, that number dropped below 70%. It was 69% of campers agreeing with that statement. So again, it dropped from 88% to 69% between pre-COVID and post-COVID.
It's a big one.
And what we see...
So there was a more significant drop.
There was a more significant
changes
drop.
Over time. That's a significant drop. Yeah.
And then do we see the post-COVID recovery like we have in those other ones? And the answer is not as much. And so we look at the agreements with this statement, and in 2024, it was 75%. 2025, it was 74%. So we see it does recover a little bit, but it's nowhere near that 87 and 88% that we were seeing pre-COVID. So these social skills or confidence in social skills, I know that I can make friends, or I am good at making friends. We kind of ask it in both ways. We see that has not recovered. And so we can still see that at camp. Do these kids have confidence in reaching outside of their normal social circles and meeting somebody new? Now, this is something, we know this. This is something that camp does really, really well. And I've said this over and over and over again. In a post-COVID world, we need camp more than ever. And this is something that really highlights that. we can see these challenges in self-confidence that the campers are still having, and we can see this latent challenge in making friends or in confidence that I can make friends and have social skills. And one of those things that camp does best. And so, really focusing on these things at camp and
Mhm.
helping our counselors understand the importance of this becomes really, really important. Because here's the thing that goes along with that: the parents are watching and they're seeing that their kids are struggling. And they want their kids to go outside their comfort
Mhm.
zone. They want them to be challenged. We get the high agreement level that I want my kid to be
That challenge
challenged because that
question.
helps them grow, right? I want my kids to make new friends and to have that experience and develop these social skills. And so when that doesn't happen, or when it breaks down and their kid feels bullied,
Right.
feels picked on, feels like they weren't part of the group,
Safe space breakdowns and
then
relational
it
breakdowns.
really has consequences on the perceptions of the experience. And the parent is much less likely to send the kid back. And so our expectations are higher because we know that this is something that camp does really well. And this is something that my kid needs. And all these kids need these days. And so one of the reasons I'm sending them to camp is so that they can learn how to meet friends
This is
and
an
make
important
friends.
statement. That's the
That's
reason
why
why
I'm
parents are
sending them.
sending their kids to camp.
Yes. It's one of the top reasons.
Again, like, yeah, Jesus and everything. That too, thumbs up, right? But
yes,
yeah, this is why.
I want them to develop character and self-confidence and integrity, and I want them to develop social skills. And yes, I'm sending them to a Christian camp because I want them to grow in their faith, but also I think the Christian camps are going to do it better because I probably grew up Christian, or I feel good about the Christian church, and they're going to teach good morals. They're going to teach good standards. They're going to not put up with bullying and pranks and things like that. They're going to do camp in a Christian way where my kid's going to be cared for and loved and supported. And so when that breaks down, that has huge consequences on the parent perception of the camp experience.
Last summer, I watched a canoe tip at a camp waterfront. The staff knew exactly what to do: flip the canoe, steady it, climb back in, begin to bail. That's what resilience looks like in our world. But for many camp directors, it feels like we're treading water. Staffing, parents, finances, board meetings, without a plan to flip that canoe. That's why we created the Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic. It helps you see where the leaks are and where your team already has strengths, so you can keep ministry at the center without drowning in overwhelm. I'm Travis from GoCamp Pro. You might remember me from being a guest here on Sacred Playgrounds last year. I've walked these paths and I know the strain. Take the free diagnostic at camp.mba/sacred. Again, that's camp.mba/sacred.
Jared back with you from Sacred Playgrounds. Let me tell you something that you already know. Camp has the potential to be deeply impactful. Many of us have seen it with our own eyes and felt it with our own souls, having had our own transformative, maybe even life-changing experiences. And yet we know that camp doesn't always have the same impact on everyone. So what is it that makes camp work? Over the last decade of research with thousands of campers and parents, the 5 fundamentals of Christian summer camp continue to apply. These 5 foundational ways of being camp, when in place, missional outcomes are consistent and lasting. We just launched a brand new self-assessment tool designed to help camp leaders like you start thinking more deeply about these 5 fundamentals of Christian summer camp in your own specific context. Here's what you get in this tool. It consists of an introduction to the 5 fundamentals and then a 10-question self-scored assessment for each one of these 5. Finally, a guided worksheet that will help you record, analyze, and implement what you learn. It can be done individually and will be especially impactful when done in the context of your camp staff team. This self-assessment tool is available right now in our camp store for instant download. You can find it at sacredplaygrounds.com/store. Just click 5 Fundamental Self-Assessment and then add to cart. When you get to checkout, just for listening to this podcast, add the discount code PODCAST and we'll take 30% off of that order. We'd love to hear what you learn, what you uncover as you start to explore your own context and where these 5 fundamentals are alive and well and matter for you at your camp, at your sacred playground. When we stack these things up together, when we look at these kind of four main questions, these four main variables, and this is a little bit of what we do again with the data, right? We look at things, and one, we look at trends over time, and then we look at things in comparison to each other, right? So that's what we saw. We saw these three things that had this recovery. This other one, this really key human thing about relationships and friendships and connections that we know obviously are so vital to our overall well-being, right? We're talking about well-being today, literally today. We've got this webinar that's happening today or happened today. Hopefully you got a chance to join around how much our well-being matters and how deeply
Absolutely.
these confidence and relational things make a difference for all these other outcomes that we hope for, like you're saying. And so it's worth paying attention to, again, that we've got these things, we've seen some recovery, yay, good job, and we've got this piece that hasn't. So my question then, Jake, is the one that we always ask after we learn something. What then shall we do, my friend?
Yes. This is the key place where we've got to turn that corner. And so let me share a little bit of good news first, because I alluded to this at the beginning, that there were 3 areas that showed the most growth this summer. So what we're doing now is we're not just looking at the first day camper survey over time. We're looking at those same campers, the ones that came into camp, and only 74% of them were agreeing, I'm good at making friends, right? So where are they on the last day of camp? And so that's one of the key things that we do in the Effective Camp Project. And there were 3 of these many questions that we asked that showed the greatest growth. And those 3 things, and this was consistent across all these Christian camps that we looked at, the evangelical camps, the mainline camps, all of them, there were 3 things that showed the most growth. Number 1, I like going out of my comfort zone and trying new things. One of those key ones that we highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, I am good at making friends. So that one that we just highlighted, that we haven't seen the post-COVID recovery like we did in these other ones. This is one of the top areas of growth among our campers this past summer. And the third one is, I feel confident in my ability to be a leader. And that goes right along with our quick camp question and this importance of camp developing leadership skills. But I want you to think about those 3, right? I like going out of my comfort zone. I'm good at making friends. I feel confident in my ability to be a leader. They all have to do with self-confidence, right? And my self-understanding of who I am and what I'm able to do. And so going out of my comfort zone, making friends, and I can be a leader, those are the 3 areas of growth. Now, your question. What then shall we do? We really need to lean into wellness at camp. And this understanding that these campers, some of them are coming in and they're really, really struggling. Some of them are very high needs. We can't just assume and treat every camper the same way, that every camper is going to come in with some base level of social skills. Because that's not how it's working right now. Some campers are coming in and they're ready to meet new friends, they're ready to try new things, and their parents are like, good, go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in a cabin group with 1 or 2 really high needs campers that take the time away from and the counselor's attention away, then there's oftentimes challenging cabin dynamics there. And so training our staff how to work with these different groups of campers becomes really, really important. How do we train our staff to deal with camper conflict? Do you have a strategy? Do you have a program? Do you have a protocol for when camper conflict arises? Or are staff just left to their own devices and left to work it out? Okay, guys, say you're sorry and let's move on. Or, oh, that wasn't that big a deal. Just laugh it off. He was just joking. She didn't really mean that. Are we explaining it away like that? Or are we pausing and are we saying we're in a different time right now? These struggles are real. And some of these kids are really taking these things to heart because they're coming in and they're like, I'm not good at making friends. And so when somebody else might be joking, they think that's just me again failing at making friends. I'm bad at this, right? And that pulls them down further rather than building up the group.
Mm-hmm.
And so really teaching some of these differences to your staff, and also teaching conflict resolution, teaching group building, and really leaning into those things right away, leaning into them heavily during staff training. This is one of the reasons that we as Sacred Playgrounds are really investing in and believing in this Campwell project, and this partnership with the Alliance for Camp Health, because we believe that wellness at camp and well-being is really, really important. So how are we creating a culture? How are we creating an environment of well-being for our staff and for our campers so that they are appropriately challenged and they are appropriately supported as they go through this experience? And no matter how they come in, right? We're caring for the individual camper and the individual staff member, and we're providing for them, and we're creating a caring community for them. So these are some of the things to really lean into. And I too often hear from camp directors, oh, kids aren't like they used to be, or they just have to deal with it, or what's wrong with them? I hear people being dismissive of this, and I'm afraid that comes from a place of ignorance, and that's a really uncaring response. There are forces now and changes in society now that are really putting pressure on young people, the campers and staff, and they're different from the pressures that were being experienced in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And so trying to understand those and seeking to understand is an important thing for all of us who work with young people, whether we're in camp or we're in the church.
Amen. All right, Jake, thanks for unpacking those, and as usual, turning them into, what do we do? Where do we lean? How do we integrate? We're getting close. We have one more thing to do though before we wrap, and that is to get our stat of the week.
Stat of the week. Stat of the week. Stat of the week.
All right, our stat of the week this week, which, as always, we'll give you a graphic for this. We'll hit share on this. You can come share our post or grab this and integrate it into wherever you like. Here's our stat of the week this week.
Our stat of the week this week is 96%. All right. Now, this one is really fun because here's what's fun about this one. So we ask this question every year, but we asked it in a new way this year. This comes from our parent survey. And so we surveyed over 2,000 parents this summer. It's something like 2,500 parents. And we always have asked them the question on agreement scale. It is clear that camp had an impact on my child, right? This is Jared's favorite stat. He loves this stat. So what we had last year as we were presenting this, one of our good friends asked, well, wait a minute, an impact? What kind of an impact? I mean, are we sure? Like, what if it's a negative impact? And so it kind of like, we were so excited about this stat. And so we're like, we've got to add a word into this and confirm that it's a positive impact.
Yeah, it might just not be implied.
It's impacting my kid. Right? Yeah, you impacted my kid. You smacked him in the head. They came home with a bruise, right? Like, what do we mean, right? And so we added one word this year, and the word that we added was positive. And so we asked agreement among parents. It is clear that camp had a positive impact on my child. That's the stat that we're offering this time. And in the past, it's been 90%, right? And so we're asking, okay, let's be prepared. It might be below 90% this year because maybe a percentage of those who said they're having an impact had a negative impact.
Had a negative one.
And so we added the word positive, and the stat of the week is 96%, not 90%. It actually went up this summer when we added the word positive. And so that's kind of a fun thing for us to see. And so it's still over 90%. 96% of parents agreed with the statement, it is clear that camp had a positive impact on my child. Wow.
Yeah, that's basically all. I just realized I said, oh man, Jake, because I got to go marker up all my business cards now. Right on all my business cards are, jeez, because on our business cards, it's just a fun thing. I put a statistic on the back. Like one side's just got that number, 90%. Right, it's part of the heart of what we do. Yeah, now I'm gonna have to go write all those up. Thanks a lot. That's our stat of the week. All right, everyone, thank you. Thanks for digging in, for listening in. Jake, any parting words?
Keep up what you're doing, you guys. We appreciate your work. Now is the time to be planning for next summer. And so really lean into these self-confidence things, look into Campwell, and let us know how we can support you in helping build self-confidence and leadership at your camps.
Amen. Thanks everyone for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch every new episode. If this is helpful for you and your organization and your team, follow the link in the show notes to become a supporter of the podcast. Our theme music was written and performed by Weekend Picnic. Find their original songs anywhere you get your music or visit them at weekendpicnicband.com. Sacred Playgrounds is generating insights, equipping leaders, and connecting partners to help camping ministries thrive. Learn more about what we've got going on, view current research projects, and connect with our team at sacredplaygrounds.com.